welcome to the channel, and in this we are going to solve some Microsoft Online Assessment problem, and thanks to this beautiful website Program Help from where we got this entire content. So they have basically mentioned all the questions that has been asked in past few years in online assessment, and we are going to solve few of them. So we basically decided to take out a set from this, and then we are going to solve. Okay, so in this, let me give you a basic overview of Microsoft Online Assessment. Okay, so in this we have programming problems. Two programming questions are there, like basically DSA based, data structures based problems, and then we have logical / mathematical mini questions. So there are 5 in numbers, and then once you are done with these two sections, that depends upon your slot, you may get some new section or not. So basically for now we have two sections. The first one is a programming problem section that consists of 2 data structures and algorithm problems, and then we have 5 mathematical or reasoning based or logic based questions that we should go through. Okay, so let's start with the first data structure and algorithm problem. Okay, so I guess most of you have already seen this problem or have already gone through this problem on Geeks or Lead Code or somewhere like that. Okay, so the problem is longest valid parenthesis, and I am still amazed that they have really asked this question in their online assessment. So let's look into the problem description very carefully. Given a string contains only open parenthesis and closing parenthesis, find the length of the longest valid well-formed parenthesis substring. Okay, so what exactly is a well-formed valid parenthesis? So the one that starts with opening parenthesis and ends with closing parenthesis. A valid parenthesis substring must have a properly paired and nested parentheses, for example this one or this. A valid parenthesis substring this are valid parentheses, for example this and this are valid parentheses substrings, while this particular thing and this particular thing are invalid. Okay, so the example goes like example 1. So there is an input opening parenthesis and closing parenthesis. So we have these two continuous, so the output will be 2. So the longest valid parenthesis substring is opening and closing parenthesis. Okay, with the length of 2, definitely one opening one and the other one is the closing one. Again, we have few examples, you can go through this. Okay, now let's look into the requirement very carefully. Okay, so the time complexity must not exceed big O of n, means we need to solve it in linear time complexity, where n is the length of the string, and the space complexity also is big O of n. It's not constant, you can take care of that. Now let's try to understand what basically the problem is. Okay, so given a string S that contains only opening parenthesis and closing parenthesis, there is no other character for sure. Now find the length of longest substring that forms a valid balanced parenthesis sequence, opening, closing, or some sort of that. Now they have already mentioned a valid parenthesis substring must have matching pairs, opening, closing, be properly nested like this, opening, again opening, closing, and then closing, opening, closing, opening, closing. So this is a properly nested valid parenthesis. Next we have cannot be particularly matched. So we have this closing, opening, then the second one opening, opening, closing, then opening, closing, then closing, and then opening. So you have to go through the entire elements, all the elements. Constants we already know, time complexity big O of n, space complexity less than equals to big O of n. Now these constants tells us that we should not use a brute force approach. So this particular problem may have more than one approach to solve, and definitely we are not going to look into the brute force approach for sure, and we need a linear scan and a clever algorithm to go through this. Now the method that I'm going to use right here is a stack method. Yeah, I know we can solve it using DP, we can solve it using pointers and other stuff. We can definitely do that, not a problem. But here I just try to go with one of the optimal method or one of the optimal approach that came into my mind, which is stack. So now let's look into the idea of this for the first problem. So now the So the whole idea of this problem is we are going to use a stack method, and whenever we are getting a opening parenthesis, we will push its index, and whenever we are going to get a closing parenthesis, we will pop it from the index. Okay, and if at some point of time this stack becomes empty, then we will push the current index. Okay, else if it is not empty, then we will compute the current valid length. And what is the current valid length of that entire parenthesis? So it will be something like current index, where exactly we are, minus stack top, the top element. Okay, now let's look into the solution that we have. So here I'm creating a function def longest valid parentheses. It will take a parameter of s in str, that is string input, so the code is in Python. Okay, then it is going to return int integer type stack -1, so we will store, so initially we will keep -1, and this particular stack will store all the indices. Max length, which is nothing but our answer, so it will be initially 0. Now we are going to use enumerate, and why? Because it will take care of both the index and the character. So for I, where I is the index, ch is the character, so I comma ch in enumerate s, which is the string that I'm going to pass to this particular thing. So if ch is equals to opening parenthesis, simply append it into I, else I will do stack dot pop. Now if not stack, means if my stack is empty, what I will do is stack dot append I, so I will reset the base index. Else if the stack is not empty, I will simply use the maximum of max length, which I have already defined, minus, means comma, I minus stack of -1, so that will get the top, right? And then whatever value is stored inside this particular max length, we will return it simply. Okay, let's try to code it out. Okay, so let's go here and let's get with a Python compiler, and there we go. So the same code, and now I have to write my test cases so that we can run this entire program, right? So I already have few test cases over here. Let's try with this. Okay, so let's go over this particular thing. Okay, and then we can simply write it over here. Now let's run it. Yeah, it works. So expected 2, expected 4, 0, 4, 2, 6, or 4, 6, 4, 0, 0, 8. So basically we are creating a function named as longest valid parentheses, is storing the indices, and first if there is none, I will keep -1. I'm creating a max length, which is nothing but my answer, that will basically take care of what is the maximum length of my valid parentheses. I'll use a for loop, a single for loop. Why? Because the time complexity is given as big O of n, and I'll use this enumerate so that it can take care of both the index and character. If character is opening parenthesis, simply put it. If not, then what is the other case? If it's not opening parenthesis, then it's closing parenthesis. Then I will pop it. Now if there is no element in the index, please reset it. Like if there is no element in the stack, please reset it. So stack dot append of I, where I is nothing but the index. Else if it's not empty, find out which is greater of maximum length and I minus stack, and just simply return it. Okay, so this was the problem. Now the second problem that we have here is task scheduler. Okay, and then we have 5 mini questions that we are going to cover in coming video. So in one particular video we'll be covering task scheduler, and then in another video we'll be looking into all the 5 mathematical questions, right? So stay tuned to the channel, do subscribe, and we'll meet in the next video.